Police procedural mysteries. Is that nonfiction? Nah. If you're confused, Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime is offering a bit of clarity. You're invited to Zoom half hours on YouTube as President Fedora Amis, that's me, interviews working writers. Up today, Debra Walden Davis. In addition to chatting about Debra's writing, we're going to explore the meaning of police procedurals. I recently received results from a completely non-scientific survey. My responders consisted of avid readers, mostly women, who buy books and love mysteries. I asked them to choose their favorite subgenres from 8 categories. Already posted are classic, private eye, true crime, amateur sleuth, suspense thriller, and historical. Still to come are today's police procedural and science fiction fantasy. Yes, the categories overlap, and yes, they're a bit arbitrary. We'd love to hear any suggestions you have and comments. Send them to fedora@fedoraamis.com. Perhaps we should have fewer categories or more. Why? The huge volume of books published each year grows at such an astronomical rate that we need more specific words to locate our preferences and to describe them to others such as librarians, booksellers, agents, and editors. Well, here's the Belk library definition. Police procedurals. In the 1940s, the police procedural evolved as a new style of detective fiction. Unlike the heroes of Christie, Chandler, and Spillane, the police detective was subject to error and was constrained by rules and regulations. As Gary Houseladen says in Places for Dead Bodies, not all the clients were insatiable bombshells, and invariably there was life outside the job. Well, the detective in the police procedural does the things police officers do to catch criminals. Writers include Ed McBain, P.D. James, and Bartholomew Gill. Well, now that has good points, but we like our definition better. In police procedurals, authorities follow the law because police must not only find proper evidence, they must find it without infringing the rights of suspects. Detectives in this subgenre are subject to laws, regulations, and expectations that constrict their actions and quite often render them miserable. Still, they have a dogged devotion to justice. Our interviewee today is Debra Walden Davis, daughter of 2 Army veterans who spent her life until the age of 15 on military bases. So I guess that makes you a military brat, huh?
Definitely. I'm proud of it.
She grew up in an atmosphere of patriotism and awareness of international affairs, as her family was directly involved in what was happening in the world. While her father was deployed to Vietnam, her mother moved the family to Southwest Missouri, where Debra still lives. Well, Debra owned both bachelor's and master's degrees in education at Missouri State University. She holds lifetime Missouri teaching certificates in 4 areas, including secondary physics. Now, I only mention that because I'm so impressed. You know, hardly any of us writers have degrees in anything but English. So anybody in math or science, well, my hat's off to you, except I'm not going to take it off anyway. She currently has 4 books out in her Gambit investigation series. Especially relevant to police procedurals, Walden Davis carries 11 Missouri Peace Officers Standards and Training Certificates. I'm very impressed by that. Well, uppermost in Debra's mind is getting it right. So tell us, what do you mean by getting it right and why is it so important?
I'm telling you, Fedora, the minute you mess up, somebody's going to let you know. And so it is so important to get it right. For example, I was talking to a friend a while ago, and one class that I took with Joseph Weber and Associates there in Salem, not too far from, well, actually between you and me in St. Louis, he has a law enforcement academy, and I've taken several classes there, and one of them was interpreting written statements, analyzing written statements. And another thing that I learned was that in the past, if you write and you want to find out if somebody's telling the truth, they used to give them polygraphs. Of course, you couldn't put it in court or anything like that. But today, they don't do that anymore. Today, they do voice analysis. And so, hey, if I start talking about my detective in 2021 and he's going to give a polygraph, well, boy, anybody in law enforcement is going to go, oh, Deborah, we don't do that anymore. So you must get it right. And it's not only that. When we were talking about military, for example, I was almost finished with this last book, and I had the bad guy was diabetic, and I had him as a juvenile diabetic, but yet here he was pretending he had been in the military for so long. And I'm about ready to go to publication, and I'm reading it again for the 10th time. I go, wait a minute, the military would never have let him in.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And okay, we have adult onset of diabetes. Okay, so you have to get it right. Somebody will call you on it. So the importance of consultants, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be in the medical profession, and this one had a lot to do with pilots. We've got an in-flight emergency. Oh, the pilots, Mark Burgess out at Oz Air here in Springfield, and his pilots were wonderful. Mark even called me one day, says, Deborah, you want to go up? Well, yeah, I want to go up. So seek out these consultants. And they'll talk to you. They'll be glad to. Joe Weber even arranged for me to sit in on a convention with the Missouri Police Chiefs Association, 4-day convention. You know what all I learned?
Oh,
Everything from administrative aspects of law enforcement, what these police chiefs have to go through administratively. For example, if you got a police officer and he's dating another police officer, well, there's certain things we got to be careful about. Just things that you wouldn't even think of. So I was so pleased to be there with them. So you've got to get it right. Somebody will call you on it.
And so how do you go about finding these wonderful resources? It sounds like you need a whole army of people.
Well, sometimes it's who you date.
Okay.
And then sometimes it is that I am not above. For example, this last book opens up with a murder in Nathaniel Green Park. I see a park ranger, I go up and I start asking questions. I see a police officer who is patrolling, I go up and I ask questions. I had a friend that knew Mark Burgess, who has the private charter service. Can you make an introduction? Yes, I can. So you go around, you ask, and don't be afraid to go up and mention it. May ask you a few questions. I'm an author. Usually go, yeah, that's fine. And they'll give you a card, and then you make sure their name's in the back.
And I have found that to be true, that just saying that you're a writer, that you're an author, it opens a lot of doors and a lot of smiles on people's faces, because most of them are happy to share some of their expertise and some of their intelligence. It's wonderful.
And the great thing is, if you have a question that they may not answer, they'll turn you on to somebody that can.
That is absolutely terrific. Well, yes. How did you become a writer? How did you want to become a writer, or why?
When I was young, when my dad was in Vietnam, we lived in Seligman. And we went over to my cousin's. I was in the 6th grade. My cousin was in high school, and he wrote these stories and would just tantalize his cousins by these stories. And I thought, oh, I want to do that. And so I started making up stories in my head. And even when we would travel, as a family, everybody would be looking at the mountains. Oh, look over here. And I'd be making up a story about that mountain or somebody going to that mountain. That was what I did. I always loved to do that. When I was in high school, I took journalism a couple of years, co-editor of the paper for a couple of years, and loved to write, just loved to write. But at that time, stop and think. In journalism, Barbara Walters was starting. Being a woman in journalism wasn't going to go very far. Teachers, they loved, so I taught. I did write a little bit along the way, but I was very fortunate that when I taught in the 90s, I taught next door to a wonderful woman named Sharon Buffington. And people know her as, she writes as Sherilyn Barth. And I said some things to her. And, she was very encouraging. That's when we started coming up to Sisters in Crimes workshops. And I look back at those now and I said, Sharon, whatever made you think I could write? She says, oh, Deborah, it was there all the time. There all the time. So, it's a desire to want to do that, but then the people that you meet along the way that offer encouragement. And since I have been writing everybody, everywhere I turn around, it's been wonderful. My editor is Professor Douglas Starr. He was an AP reporter back in the day.
Oh.
Okay? Yeah, I think. Yeah. So he edits and thanks me for allowing him to edit. But he said, you write like you talk. It's like a conversation with you. And he said that's a superior form of writing. And I'm going to use that.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that in front of a book one day. You know that.
absolutely.
Right.
Well. Does your science background help you in writing police procedurals?
Yes, it does. Very much so. Like I used to tell my students, behind this head of hair was the brain. And it was nice. But especially when I was doing the stuff on the in-flight emergency, because that is pure physics. That helped. I could understand what these pilots were talking about because I had that background. So most definitely, if you start talking about things that are going on in a lab, okay. So I introduced a character, and he also runs a crime lab, and I know how labs are done. I know how they're set up. I know the importance of it. I've judged science fairs, so I know the importance of all of these steps. It has helped tremendously. Yes.
Fascinating. And I suppose that led to many things in your books, and you have 4 out. Tell us about your series, and is it continuing? You have 4 in the same series now, right? And what's going on?
They're all named for songs, by the way. Every book is named for a song. I name my books first. And somebody said, well, Deborah, that's backwards. Well, it works for me. And I'll find a song. Like for this one, it's Went for a Ride by Radney Foster and Alice Randall. And so that little part that I like, something about the chorus or a lyric or two will just grab me, and I'm going, oh, what I could do with that. Oh, what I could do. This one, so if somebody will pick it up and they will go into it and they will see, it will say, more than one kind of pain, more than one kind of theft, bitter as the night, sweet Jesus wept. There was blood on the saddle and tears in her eyes. We cussed at the devil and went for a ride. And the cover of that has that plane exploding in the air.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like, So from that point, then I start writing. The Gambit Investigation series is John Hutzel and friend Rick Hadley and John's cousin, L. Wyatt. They are the main characters. The 2 men had met working on a case in St. Louis, by the way, and we call it the Anniversary Killer Case, and became friends and decided that law enforcement was a little too confining, and so they decided to open up their own business in Springfield, Missouri. And now, as a crime writer, I'm telling you, it's very important if you have access to money and a pilot.
Well, that would be good, I'm sure.
Right. So the cases they have worked was an international case that John Hutzel put together while he was a detective in St. Louis. From that, I try to come up with something that we are facing in society. It was sex trafficking for the second one, On the Border. And with this one, the last one I just published, it's Stolen Valor and Gaslighting. So there's something in society that we are dealing with. Okay, let's use that. And we teach along the way, because that teacher in me is never going to go away.
So there's an important social issue in each one.
Yes.
Cool. Is there a character in your books that is most like you? All of those sound like guy characters.
Well, L. Wyatt isn't.
Oh, okay.
And,
so I thought it was L, but it's ELLE, right?
Right.
Okay.
My first book was not part of the Gambit series, and that is semi-autobiographical. It is a 64-year-old retired teacher, and I spoke for her. Shelley Matheson was her name, and I spoke for her. But I'm 67 now. Elle Wyatt is in her mid-30s by now. But there are so many things that Elle was allowed to do and say and be and dress and everything that I ever could. So Elle Wyatt now speaks for me. These are, if I was living now in this age and I could do the things that Elle Wyatt can do, oh yeah. So I'm doing it through Elle. So she speaks for me now.
Terrific. Well, if your novel were made into a movie, and I wanted to say this about police procedurals, all of those long-term fiction programs virtually that you see on TV, the ones that have episode after episode after episode, and they go on, well, like Law and Order, it's two different faces, whatever you want to call it. That's 42 years that they have been on.
Yes.
Columbo was off and on for 35 years, and so on and so on. They are police procedurals. That is the meat of television, and probably where the best money is. What would you want if one of yours or all of your series became a TV series or a series of blockbuster movies?
Well, an interesting question is who would play, the characters. When I decide on a character, by the way, hashtag Chris Evans is John Hutzel.
I see.
When I've decided he's playing him. When I have a character and I have an idea of how I want him to look, so I actually go looking at photos of maybe models or actors, and I will come across one. I'll go, oh, that is him, or oh, that is her. Then I will start collecting pictures of them, candid, on film, in different attire and different positions. And when I get ready to write about them, they're sitting maybe in a chair or they're doing an interrogation. I go pick up one of those pictures. I've got their clothes, I've got the look on their face and everything, and and it just flows from that point. What has he got on? He's got a real short beard? Is he wearing glasses? Is he got a holster on? Is he sitting with his arms out? So I do that. That's I have albums of picture albums on the computer of these people, and I can go, okay, yeah, that works for this scene.
Very interesting. I have friends who do collages and fill an entire wall sometimes with pictures and clippings of various sorts. We have an interesting business. I think. We do strange things. And I gotta say that I think also that your style of titling, starting with the title, is a bit bizarre. Most people, I think, start with a working title, like that's one word, like Madhouse or
right.
Killer 2, just something.
I found out from Randy Foster, who's songwriter, Grammy Award winner, and he had lots of hits himself in the 90s. But I found out from his manager, who's also his wife, that if you use 4 lyrics or less from a song, you don't need to have the permission.
Right.
So I sure make use of that. I sure do. And I've also been fortunate to meet some of these songwriters and have pictures taken with them, for my website. So it's and they are helpful. Yeah, they like this, too, because somebody saw something in their lyrics that they could use. I do have a title for book 5. It's Bob Dylan's Not Dark Yet. Isn't that a terrific title?
We'll be looking forward to that. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to know if you have any advice for people who want to write police procedurals.
I would find a law enforcement training facility. Like, I was very fortunate to meet Joe Weber in associates there in Salem. I took their classes. I can email Joe or Mark Bailey, who is one of his teachers, and Mark's, was MP with the Marines. If I have a question, I just shoot an email to him, and I've got the answer because we've got a working relationship. Through him, I met the coroner of Crawford County. Hey, Darren Dake is his name. I need what's something you guys really don't look for. I've got to kill somebody. What's something you really don't like? And they're great. Of course, they always say, now this is for a book only, right?
Of course, people read those books, and who knows, they could be,
That's right.
Who knows what they are or what they could.
Yeah, exactly. But you seek them out. Take those classes. One thing that I learned was that there are 4 emotions that they look for. Did you ever see the TV show Lie to Me?
I think so now.
Oh, look that one up. You want to look about how law enforcement, from just a glimmer, a glimpse, they can tell, oh, hey, there's a lie right there. There are several emotions. And we talked about what that, this certain look is going to pop up just for a second. But boy, if you're trained to see it, then you go, okay. And that then turn around and direct your interrogation. And
sometimes the little bitty things are what.
Little bitty things. And they said, hey, of those emotions, if you see those first 3, get ready for some violence. It's about to happen. Yeah.
That's scary. But on the other hand, it's good to be warned.
Yeah, be ready.
So do you have any final words?
If you love to tell stories, if you think you might want to be a writer, dig down deep and do it. Do it. I wanted to, my first book was published in 2018. All right, I'm 64 years old, and look at me now. I'm sitting here being interviewed by Fedora Amis of Sisters in Crime. So do it, because the world is out there and it's waiting for you.
Absolutely. You've got a wonderful subject, and we are just about to finish up. We have only 2 more of our interviews to go. One on science fiction and fantasy, and the other is, how does all of this relate to young adult mysteries? Be seeing you next time. Thank you. I'm Fedora Amis with Debra Walden Davis.
Thank you, Fedora.